my loves, and welcome back to another video on the Green Vibes YouTube channel. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe right away. We are lit over here. We love learning esoteric knowledge. So if you're into that, then definitely like this video as well and hit the bell notification when you're down there. Okay, y'all, so you saw the title, right? Let's get into it. We got into it with the first house and the fourth house in my last video. This video, we're talking about the first house and the 10th house. I didn't even realize how much y'all were interested in these kind of aspects. So when Spirit guided me to kind of talk about these things, I was skeptical at first. I was like, no one's gonna care about this. And all of you guys are like, oh, this is great. And I'm like, okay, then it's really great. Like, you know, you just never know. And this is actually what kind of feeds into the 10th house and the first house and the correspondence between the two. It's a lot to get into, so let's just go ahead and get straight into it. We're going to recap on the first house. Like I always say, I always love to refer to the first house as your armor and the kind of shield that you have around yourself in day to day. The way that I break down astrology is a little bit different. I like to make a lot of metaphors, things that are easy to remember. So if you think of your first house as the armor and the shield that you wear and that element that's in there, it's going to make a big difference to you. Try to think of the first house like you reincarnated in this particular ascendant and rising sign in order to experience the world in a particular way, because the rising sign or the ascendant sign is the lens that you see out of. If my glasses were a different color, I would see out of an earth sign, an air sign, a fire sign, or a water sign. Your rising sign is key for you to really understand who you are. Your rising sign is like who you are in this lifetime, right? But your 10th house, which is exactly 10 houses from the first, is the pinnacle. It's the structure that you've been building your whole life. The 10th house is your public image, and it's honestly your ultimate achievement in life. It's the legacy which you wish to leave. So the fact that the 10th house and the first house are squaring each other naturally in the chart, it really raises a lot of questions, like what's going on? Who am I? What kind of legacy am I leading? What kind of legacy am I leaving? So of course, just like the last one, and just like most of my videos, I'm going to go through all the signs, I'm going to go through all of the elements, but first I do just kind of want to pick up some themes that I've noticed here myself. When I really meditated on this, I was thinking the square. What does the square bring? What is the square bringing? It's bringing societal pressure to you, right? Because the 10th house is like how you want to be perceived and how you want to be shown off in life, how you want to show off in life. But your first house is, it's you. Like, you can't change yourself. So when you're talking about societal pressures, that comes into being conditioned into being a certain way. And this actually, it does go back to the fourth house. That's why you gotta watch both videos now. You gotta watch this one and that one. Because if the fourth house is your root system, the 10th house is the tree, the branching off. So there's so much of you within these houses, but the fourth house and the 10th house are directly across from each other, directly opposing each other. So if you think about the element that's in the fourth house, what's watering you in order to grow like this? In school, you were pressured to look a certain way, be a certain way, act a certain way. In public, you were to be a certain way, act a certain way, right? But what if that's not you, which is your rising sign? Your rising sign is you. It's your personality. It's what you bring to the table specially. So when you're talking about the first and the 10th house, it can be easy to kind of confuse your identity in this way, because it's like, who am I? And it's almost like that public versus private life again. But your first house isn't private, not like your fourth house. Your first house is always there. It's always present. So it's like who you've molded yourself into being when you look at your 10th house and your first house together. Now imagine if you have planets there. If you have planets in the first house and the 10th house, they're automatically going to be squaring each other. They're automatically going to have that tension between one another. And I can give myself as an example. This is probably one of the most difficult aspects in my chart, but my Venus sign, which is in the 10th house, squares my first house, and my first house has 2 planets in it. So naturally, it's not just squaring the house, it's squaring the planets that are also in the house. And that can be really difficult because it's like, in public, who am I? The Libra Venus wants to come out as someone who is more refined, more charming, more sociable. But the Uranus and the Neptune that I have in my first house, squaring that, is like, I'm gonna be crazy. Okay, we're gonna be different. We gotta be out loud. We gotta do things differently. So it's like constant tension of like, can I show up in my own way and be accepted in society? That's like the biggest question you have to ask yourself, is how do you show up in society, and how do you actually really want to show up in society when you subtract the conditioning, when you subtract out all of the social norms that aren't really normal to you, but you've adopted them. You also have to remember that the 10th house is naturally ruled by Capricorn. It's naturally an earth house, which means that there's this underlying strictness, this underlying sense of discipline that you have here. A lot of people think you can find discipline in the 6th house, definitely, you know, with that Virgo energy, but the 10th house is where you're naturally inclined to be more disciplined because you want to put on a face to the public and you want to leave something substantial. And it's not something that you can just brush under the rug. That's why people have so many midlife crisis, because they're like, well, my career is me and I'm my career, but it's not true. Your career is a part of you, but only if you allow yourself to shine through your ascendant as well, and not just through the 10th house. But it needs to be a correlation of all of you together. Something that I really want to emphasize before I go through all the elements now is that you are unique. What you bring to the table is unique. Your birth chart is unlike any others. That's why you should book a reading with me on my website, greenvibeswellness.com, for a one-on-one, because you are special and nobody else can compare to your chart. So when you're thinking of, you know, all these other people who have the same rising sign as you, sure, they have the same element, but how they express that, the planets that they have, the degrees that they have, the energy that they emit in other places, it's unlike any other. So you have to see how unique you are and the legacy that you bring to light through your 1st house and your 10th house. Through this square energy, you're going to bring about something completely different to the world. Okay, let's go through the elements. So if you have a fire rising, you're going to have an earth 10th house. If you have a water rising, you're going to have a fire 10th house. If you have an earth rising, you're going to have an air 10th house. And if you have an air rising, you're going to have a water 10th house. So let's get into fire first. Fire rising signs, if you are a Leo rising, a Sagittarius rising, or a Aries rising, you're going to have a Capricorn 10th house, a Taurus 10th house, or a Virgo 10th house. And this is using whole sign astrology, of course. Whole sign, it just makes this a lot bit easier. But of course, if you want more detail, get your one-on-one. So a fire rising, you know who you are. You know the personality that you bring. You bring so much energy into a room. It's your being. You're radiating light, right? Fire rising, you're radiating this confidence, radiating. But in your career, in your public life, in society, you feel like you have to tone it down. You feel like you have to be more grounded because you have earth here, and earth is more strict. It's more structured. Earth holds fire in, right? Sure, fire can burn earth, but there's no way that you can burn like all of the planet, right? Earth is so powerful and substantial. And so you might find yourself, even though you want to like have more adventure and have more fun in your life, you feel like in order for you to survive and in order for you to leave this legacy that you have envisioned in your mind, you have to take things slow. You have to take your time with things. Things have to be built up consistently, which is hard for a fire sign because they just want to go, go, go. But when you have Earth in the 10th house, you have to remember that square is just a pressure and attention pulling at you. Whether do you want to show up your bright light and build this foundation, you need to find a career that allows you to do both. You need to be able to show up like who you are, which is a very big personality, but you need to make sure that this is like a solid kind of foundational thing long term for you. Now, if you have a water rising, if you're a Scorpio rising, a Cancer rising, or a Pisces rising, you have fire in your 10th house. So you have Leo, Sagittarius, or Aries in your 10th house. Y'all, are you serious? Already with the highly emotional, highly sensitive water signs, but now in the public image, you're like on fire. You've got this charisma that people are so attracted to. Not only can you emotionally heal people, you can really uplift them and like uplift their spirit. So I feel like y'all are probably really like sensitive, clairsentient, and like you can feel people's emotions and you can change them. Like I'm seeing a lot of this energy of changing. You shift feelings, you shift perspectives, and that's huge in your career and the legacy that you want to leave. But with fire, you can easily be burned out. I'm feeling like With this fire energy here, you feel like you can just go, 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 but you're a water rising and you need isolation. You need time to regenerate, to breathe, to regroup, because it'll take so much out of you, and the fire can go really quick. So you have to remember, as a water rising sign, to bring yourself into your career and make sure that it's a career or a legacy that you're leaving that you feel more comfortable with, that you feel safe and secure, and not just like someone who's so active and activated only at certain points in life, but that your fire can burn consistently. Don't forget that need to regroup and regenerate and calm down. And especially, you know, if you watch the last video, you need to talk things out when you get home. So all that excitement that you have built up for your career, all these ideas that you have, you got to talk them out, because you're feeling so much and you don't want your first house to become overwhelmed with the pressure of the 10th house. Hey, now if you're an earth rising, gang, we got air in the 10th. Air in the 10th, yo, smarticle. We smarticle up in here. People think we be slow and steady, but we're thinking at 1,000 miles a minute, right? So we're talking about, we're Capricorn, Virgo, Taurus risings. You are going to have Libra, Aquarius, or Gemini in the 10th house. And this is very crucial and critical because we are the visionaries, the ones who have the big visions. We see things before they even happen. That's like future oriented mental energy is very important. But the thing is, we don't feel very grounded. We're always overthinking because as earth rising signs, we love our stability, and the 10th house represents that stability. But we overthink about all the things that we want to accomplish, and we need to do more action and less thinking about it, but more action oriented. And that's what earth loves. You notice sometimes earth risings, like you'll just sit on an idea and you'll sit and you'll overthink it, but the second that you actually start to do something, like in the earth material realm, you feel better. You feel better every time that you take action. So that's the most important thing to remember with that tension. If you have so many ideas, just write them down and start doing them, and stop thinking so much. We have these visions for a reason, but the vision is to be put out into the world. And if you need other people to assist you, then you can use your air, your communication in the 10th house to collect people. Like, we're very charming. We're very much so social people. But we need that stability and that groundedness in the first house to remind us that, you know, our ideas can be tangible too. They can come to fruition. Lastly, if you're an air rising and you have water in the 10th house, so that's a Gemini rising, an Aquarius rising, or a Libra rising, you're going to have a Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio 10th house. And this is very, very profound, honestly, because I see you want to like detach yourself. There's this energy of like wanting to detach from so many different outcomes. But when you have water in the 10th, you got to become very attached, and that can be very uncomfortable. But it's you feeling your feelings, and through that you're moving people, you're really igniting people. It's almost like the fire risings too. Like, you guys are moving people with your words, with your emotions, and you have to understand that you do make a big impact, and you can detach, you know, from these things if they're like weighing you down, because you might need to. With this emotional work that you do, it could be really heavy on you. So you might need to detach, but don't detach so much to the point where you're not connecting anymore. You need to be able to connect with the people around you and with society around you. And that's the pressure that you feel, but it's there for a reason, because you're able to change people's minds and get them going in a different kind of way. So really quick, let's go ahead and go through some journal prompts. I would say ask yourself, who am I in public, and who am I wanting to be in public, right? Who am I? My rising sign is who I am, but what is the face that I put on? Who do I want to show up as in the 10th house? And what are the societal pressures that I have put on myself? What are the societal pressures that I have put on myself via the 10th house? And the last journal prompt would be, how can I integrate my first house into my 10th house? How can I integrate my first house into my 10th house? thanks for visiting me. Come back soon. Make sure to like this video and subscribe. I love this channel. It's growing. Let's get more people in here who want to discover themselves. I'm sending you all so much love and peace. Don't forget to book your session with me, and I'll see y'all in another one. Okay, bye.